Tomorrow marks the official beginning of summer, the season of lake days, fishing docks, canoe trips, and evenings spent watching the sun sink beyond the water. For many of us, some of our happiest memories live beside lakes and rivers, and yet deep water has always carried a certain mystery. Perhaps because no matter how clear the surface may seem, there's always a place where our vision fails, a place where sunlight fades, a place where imagination takes over. And it's often there, beneath the water and beyond sight, that stories begin. Welcome to The Hollow Between, a podcast of folklore, ghost stories, and the uncanny. I'm Candace, and tonight, beside the lantern light, I have a story for you. So, settle in with a blanket and a cup of something warm, because tonight we are diving beneath the surface. Water has always inspired stories, perhaps because it remains one of the few places on Earth where something large can remain hidden. Forests eventually reveal their paths. Mountains show us their peaks. But lakes, rivers, and oceans, they keep secrets. And across North America, some of those secrets have names. One of the most famous is Champ, or Champy as it's affectionately called. Champ is said to inhabit Lake Champlain, a vast lake stretching between New York, Vermont, and Canada. Witness descriptions vary, but Champ is often described as a large, serpent-like creature with a long neck rising from the water. Some reports describe dark green or brown skin, humps breaking the surface behind it, and a body stretching far longer than any known fish. Others claim it resembles a prehistoric reptile gliding silently across the lake. Most sightings last only a few moments. A neck, a hump, a wake moving across otherwise still water, and then nothing at all. Sightings have been reported for generations. Long before modern cryptozoology became popular, indigenous peoples living near the lake told stories of unusual creatures inhabiting its waters. Centuries later, settlers reported seeing large shapes moving across the surface. And today, Champ remains one of North America's most enduring lake legends. Whether the creature exists is almost beside the point. The real question is why so many people continue to look for it. Farther west, in Okanagan Lake, another famous creature waits beneath the water. This creature is known as the Ogopogo. Unlike many modern monster stories, Ogopogo has roots in much older traditions. Indigenous stories connected the lake with powerful spiritual beings long before European settlers arrived. The creature became woven into local folklore, evolving over generations into the legend we know today. Ogopogo is most often described as a massive sea serpent-like creature with a dark body and a series of humps visible above the surface of the lake. Witnesses have reported seeing the creature moving through the water in long, rolling motions, sometimes leaving a wake that stretches for hundreds of feet behind it. Some witnesses have described the Ogopogo as something dragon-like, with a broad head and powerful body disappearing beneath the depths before it can be clearly observed. And like many lake creatures, it's most often seen at a distance, just far enough away to remain uncertain. Reports continue to this day. Dark shapes, unexplained wakes, something moving where nothing should be. And the details change, but the mystery remains. Not every creature lives deep in a mountain lake. Some of these water creatures do belong to rivers, and perhaps none feels more unsettling than the white river monster. The stories emerged from the White River in Arkansas. Witnesses described something immense moving through the water. Newspapers reported sightings, crowds gathered, rumors spread. Some thought it was just a giant fish. Others suggested something far stranger. But unlike Champ or Ogopogo, the White River monster has never settled into a single appearance. Some witnesses described a creature the size of a car. Others reported a pale, elephant-like hide. There were accounts of a broad, flat back breaking the surface and strange movements through the river unlike anything local residents had ever seen before. The uncertainty surrounding its appearance only deepened the mystery. No one seemed able to agree on exactly what they had seen, only that they had seen something. What fascinates me isn't just the creature itself, but the atmosphere surrounding the reports. Slow-moving southern water, fog drifting across the river, something surfacing briefly before disappearing again. The feeling that the river belongs to something older than the people living beside it. Then there are stories surrounding Lake Placid. Many people know the name because of the movie, but the region itself has a long history of local legends and unusual sightings. Over the years, people reported strange creatures, unexplained disappearances, and mysterious encounters in nearby waters. Some of these stories may have originated from sightings of large fish, such as the alligator gar, which can grow up to 10 feet and has quite a prehistoric appearance. Their long snouts are lined with sharp teeth. Their scales resemble armor. Anyone familiar with an alligator gar can understand how legends begin. And when viewed beneath the dark water, they look less like fish and more like survivors from another age. So imagine standing on a dock at dusk and seeing one drift silently beneath you. It's easy to understand why some people believed they had encountered a monster. A glimpse is often all folklore requires. The name itself has roots connected to a Seminole settlement, sometimes translated as Alligator Town. And perhaps that's the nature of many monster legends. Not certainty, not proof, just a shape beneath the surface, a moment of doubt, a question. And beyond lakes and rivers lie the oceans. For centuries, sailors reported encounters with sea serpents. Entire crews described enormous creatures rising from the water. Sea serpent descriptions varied wildly, but certain details appeared again and again. Witnesses described long, dark bodies rising from beneath the water in looping coils. Some reported horse-like heads. Others described dragon-like features. Many claimed the creatures moved with an unsettling grace, disappearing beneath the waves before their full length could ever be seen. Sailors sometimes estimated these creatures to be 50 feet long. Others claimed they were much larger. The sea, after all, has always made it difficult to judge distance, especially when fear enters the equation. 19th century newspapers were filled with such reports. Some were undoubtedly misidentifications. Others may have been exaggerations. But imagine standing on a deck of a ship weeks from shore, fog surrounding you, the sea stretching endlessly in every direction. And then something breaks the surface. You only see part of it, and then it disappears. The mind has a way of filling the gaps, and stories begin, and legends are born. Perhaps the real mystery isn't whether these creatures exist. Perhaps the mystery is why we continue looking for them. Why every generation stares into deep water and wonders what might be looking back. Bodies of water offer something increasingly rare. They offer mystery, genuine mystery, the possibility that not everything has been discovered, the possibility that something still waits below, silent and watching, hidden beneath dark water and reflected skies. Whether they're called monsters, lake creatures, river spirits, or sea serpents, these legends share something in common. None of them remain visible for long. They appear, they're witnessed, and then they disappear beneath the water once more, leaving only a story behind. Tonight's story begins with a dock and something waiting beneath it. So sit back and enjoy the tale of the shape in Mirror Lake. Ethan Mercer had been coming to Mirror Lake for nearly 30 years. His grandfather built the cabin in 1958, back when the roads were gravel and the nearest town consisted of a gas station, a diner, and a handful of homes tucked between the pines. Every summer, the family returned. As a boy, Ethan spent long days diving from the dock, catching sunfish from an old aluminum boat, and searching the shoreline for turtles. The lake had always felt familiar, safe. Even now, at 34, he found comfort in its routines. Morning coffee on the porch, the scent of warm pine, loons calling across the water, the soft creak of the dock beneath his feet. Some places become part of a person, and Mirror Lake was one of those places. That was why he noticed the shape. It appeared on the third evening. The sun was sinking behind the trees, turning the water copper and gold. Ethan sat at the end of the dock watching the lake settle into twilight when he noticed something dark beneath him. A shape, large, motionless, resting, or so he assumed, some 10 feet below the surface. At first, he thought it was a submerged log. The lake was full of them. Storms occasionally pushed fallen trees into the water, where they remained for decades. He stared for a moment, then shrugged and went inside. But the next evening it was still there, and the evening after that, always in exactly the same place. By the end of the week, he found himself checking for it every night. The shape never moved, it never drifted, it never changed position. The word came uninvited. Waiting. Ethan immediately laughed at himself. It was just a shape, nothing more. Yet, an uneasy feeling remained. The first truly strange thing happened on a Tuesday afternoon. An elderly man from a neighboring cabin wandered over while Ethan was sitting on the dock. Walter had lived on the lake year-round for nearly 40 years. The two chatted about fishing conditions, the drought, and the unusually low water level. Then Ethan pointed toward the lake. "You ever notice anything strange out there?" Walter followed his gaze. The old man's expression changed, but only slightly. "What kind of strange?" he asked. Ethan pointed downward. The shape beneath the dock. Walter became very quiet. "What shape?" "The dark one," Ethan responded. The old man stared at the water for a long time. Then he sighed. "I wouldn't spend too much time looking at it." Ethan laughed. "You know about it?" Walter's eyes remained fixed on the lake. "The mistake isn't seeing it." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked. Walter finally looked at him. "The mistake is believing it's looking at you." He glanced back at the water. "Truth is, son," his voice dropped almost to a whisper, "I think it's watching the lake." Then Walter turned and walked away. That night, Ethan dreamed of dark water. In the dream, he stood at the end of the dock beneath a moonless sky. The lake was black and perfectly still. Then something shifted beneath the surface, not toward him, but upward, just enough to suggest tremendous size, as though something sleeping had just adjusted its position. He woke before dawn with his heart racing, and that image stayed with him all day. The drought worsened. Week by week, the shoreline retreated farther. Rocks emerged from the water. Mud flats appeared near the coves. The dock sat lower than Ethan had ever seen it, and gradually the shape became clearer, not because it moved, but because the water did. One evening, Ethan carried a flashlight onto the dock. The beam cut through the darkening water. At first, he saw only murky depths. Then the light found the shape. Ethan froze. It wasn't resting on the lake bed. It wasn't touching the bottom at all. It was just suspended there, motionless, hanging in the water. The beam slid across a broad, curved surface. There was something unmistakably alive about it. It wasn't scales. It wasn't skin. It looked weathered and ancient, as though it had spent centuries beneath the lake. The surface appeared smooth in some places and ridged in the others, like old wood shaped by water and time. The shape extended beyond the reach of his flashlight, and it was much larger than Ethan had imagined. Then the beam flicked, and he hurried back to the cabin. The next day, Ethan visited the town library. Mirror Lake had once been considerably smaller. Older maps showed marshland where deeper water now existed. Nothing unusual there, but a newspaper clipping caught his attention. Local boy vanishes from Mirror Lake, 1934. A teenager disappeared while swimming near the very stretch of shoreline where Ethan's family's dock now stood. No body was ever found. No explanation was ever offered. Only one detail lingered in the report. A witness claimed the boy had been staring into the water moments before he vanished, as though watching something below. The stories accumulated after that. A fisherman who refused to return to the lake. A woman who claimed she saw something larger than her canoe beneath the water. A diver who surfaced pale and shaken and would never explain what he had seen. Different decades, different witnesses, but the same location, the same stretch of water, the same silence afterward. Ethan's final night of the season arrived in late August. The lake was lower than he had ever seen it, and the shape seemed impossibly close now. Suddenly, he realized something. It had never been moving closer. The lake itself was uncovering it, year by year, drought by drought, summer by summer. Whatever lay beneath Mirror Lake had remained in exactly the same place all along. The water had simply hidden it, until now. Shortly before midnight, Ethan carried a flashlight onto the dock one last time before returning home. The air felt strangely still. No loons, no frogs, no insects, only silence. He leaned over the edge and pointed the beam downward. The light struck the shape, and for the first time, Ethan saw enough to understand why every witness had struggled to describe it, because it did not resemble anything familiar. Not a fish, not a reptile, not a whale, not any creature he knew. The curved surface broadened into something that suggested a head, a vast shape partially concealed by darkness, ancient, immense, patient. Then the beam reached an eye. large, round, open, looking upward, not blinking, not moving, simply just watching, as though it had been there for generations. Watching swimmers, watching boats, watching storms pass overhead, watching families come and go, and watching the lake itself. For one impossible moment, Ethan had the strange feeling that the creature was not trapped beneath the water. It was waiting. And for what? He couldn't say. Then the lake rippled, a single ring spreading outward through the darkness. The eye vanished, the water clouded, and the shape disappeared. Rain arrived the following day, 3 days of steady storms, and when the clouds finally cleared, the lake had risen several feet. The shape was hidden once more beneath deep, dark water. The mystery buried again, or at least for now. Ethan still returns to Mirror Lake every summer. He still drinks coffee on the porch. He still watches the sunset from the dock. But he no longer goes swimming in the deep water. And every August, when the water begins to drop, he finds himself glancing into the depths beneath the dock, looking, waiting, wondering. The shape doesn't appear every year, but often enough. Just a little clearer than before, and sometimes just a little closer to the surface, as though something beneath Mirror Lake is slowly being uncovered. And sometimes, on perfectly still evenings, Ethan remembers Walter's warning. The mistake isn't seeing it. The mistake is believing it's looking at you. Because after all these years, Ethan has come to suspect the old man was right. The thing beneath Mirror Lake was never watching him. It was watching the lake, waiting patiently for something neither man could understand. And some nights, when the water is calm and the sky is reflected perfectly upon its surface, Ethan can almost convince himself that the eye is still there beneath the dock. Perhaps that's why stories of water creatures endure. Not because we believe every sighting, not because we're convinced monsters lurk beneath every lake and river, but because water remains one of the last places where mystery still feels possible. A forest can be mapped, a mountain can be climbed, and a road can be followed from beginning to end. But beneath the surface of water, there's always a point where our vision fails, a point where the known world ends. And that, my friends, is where the stories begin. For generations, people have looked across lakes, rivers, and oceans and reported seeing something they couldn't explain. That dark shape, a ripple where no boat passed, a wake moving against the wind. Sometimes those stories find explanations, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they become folklore, passed from one generation to the next like a lantern carried through darkness. And there's something beautiful about that. Despite all of our maps, measurements, and drone images, there are still places capable of making us ask questions. Places capable of making us look twice. Places capable of making us wonder what might be waiting just beyond sight. And perhaps that's the real creature beneath the water. Not the serpent, not the monster, not something ancient waiting in the depths, but mystery itself, quiet and patient, and always just beyond reach. Please send your stories to thehollowbetween@gmail.com. Perhaps your story might be shared here beside the lantern light. Thank you for spending this evening with me, friends. And until next time, Mind the hollow between. While many of the traditions, places, and legends discussed in tonight's episode are rooted in history and folklore, the featured narrative was created for the hollow between.